What's going on, boys, and welcome back to another video. Today, this one's gonna be a little bit different. We're gonna be talking about the Shadowlands development update because Shadowlands has been delayed. So it'd be interesting to kind of see what they're working on and changes to conduits and changes to legendaries. So let's get into it. Also, as a reminder, I do stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday on Twitch. Link to that will be in the description below. So this is just going to be kind of a talking head informal video, but we're just going to kind of go over what Blizzard has been up to basically with their delay. So for those of you who have been under a rock, Shadowlands has been delayed. It was supposed to come out October 26th in the United States on the West Coast, and it instead is being delayed to sometime before the end of the year, theoretically. So we got this post 3 days ago, which was on Tuesday, and this is what they're working on for October. So they're working on the Maw, which is an endgame zone. Any player interested in progress or basically advancing their character is going to spend a lot of time here because this is where sockets come from. This is also a way for you to upgrade the conduits that you get. So currently the Maw in the beta is very, very unfinished. It's not fun. There's just like, it's like desolate and just full of monsters randomly. It's not really fully fleshed out, like say something like the Timeless Isle or Argus, like those sorts of things that were really fun endgame zones. So I'm glad that they're working on that. I'm glad that that's a priority for them. Going into the conduit system. So I'm just going to read this. We've received a lot of feedback that the conduit system, and many of you have expressed that the current system will unreasonably limit experimentation and multi-spec play early in the expansion. So before I go further, it doesn't limit experimentation and multi-spec play early in the expansion. It limits it throughout the entire expansion. Even if you have all 3 soulbinds, if you use, I don't know, your favorite one's Nadia from Venthyr, okay? And you play a Death Knight and you want to use Nadia for all 3 specs. You can't because you can't switch your conduits that often. They are, according to this post, they're removing the weekly reset sort of thing. So it used to be on the beta that you could only do a single reset per character per soulbind, and that was the only time you could change your conduits, is once per week. Now they've changed it to this system. In an upcoming build, we will be replacing the weekly cooldown on changing conduits with a more flexible system. When unlocked, the Forge of Bonds will be charged with 10 conduit energy, and placing a conduit into a socket will consume a single charge. Conduit energy recharges at the rate of 1 per day, up to a cap of 10, and adding a new conduit to your collection immediately restores 1 conduit energy as well. I don't understand. Listen, like, this system that they're building in is completely unnecessary and is a waste of development time, in my opinion. Again, just my opinion. You could just let us switch conduits at will. Maybe you need a tome to do it. Maybe you need to go back to your Covenant Sanctum to do it. Maybe you could just interact with it like it's the garrison mission, and like you press a keybind on your keyboard or you click a little thing on your map and it lets you change it. Yeah, I mean, you can't do it in combat, but with a tome, sure. Scribes can make more money. That's great. This system still doesn't provide multi-spec play the way they want it to. And then so we'll get into this. Class and Covenant balance is the other thing they're working on. Tuning has been underway, as you guys have noticed. Things have been getting nerfed and buffed, and numbers have been moving around. So this is good. We want classes to be balanced. We want covenants to be balanced. However, we can get into the balance question here in a moment. So I'm going to go to the next covenant update. So this was yesterday. This is actually the second time I'm recording this video because the audio got messed up on the first one. So in this week's Shadowlands beta build, soulbinds have had their tree layouts changed in a small but important way. All soulbinds now have access to 2 potency conduits, whereas previously all trees had access to 3 potency conduits. The goal of this change is to increase the flexibility of soulbinds and make it more viable to use one soulbind for multiple specializations. Okay, if this is the goal, then you remove all restrictions on changing conduits and you just let us pick whatever one we want. You just let us pick whatever one that we want to play with, and we can change our conduits at any time. And if I want to do Mythic Plus as a tank, then I can put in my tank's conduits. And if I want to do PvP as one specialization of my character, then I can do that. And if I want to do healing for my raid spec, then I can do that. And there's no cooldown, because even in this situation, even with the 2 potency conduits, let's pretend you raid 2 days per week, but you PvP 2 days per week, okay? And then you Mythic Plus 1 day per week. That's something that's someone that participates in all aspects of the game, okay? So you have, let's pretend you have raiding conduits, you have Mythic Plus conduits, and you have PvP conduits, because you do. Like in this situation, in this world, you do. Certain things are good for certain specs, certain things are good for certain situations. That's the point of conduits, right? Is that in order for them to be impactful, they need to be good in a specific situation. Otherwise, there would just be one conduit that's the best conduit, does more damage conduit, and then you always pick that one, right? So if they want conduits to be balanced and interesting, they have to be good in different situations. But the restrictions still hurts those people. So on Tuesday reset, you have 10 of your energy or whatever. So you keep them where you were, because let's say you were raiding on Monday too, okay? And then you want to do some Mythic Plus after raid. Well, you have to change 2 conduits. That costs 2 energy. Okay, so you're down 2. So now you're down to 8. Wednesday comes around, you get another one, so you're up to 9. Then you use 2 again because you did some PvP. But what if you wanted to do a Mythic Plus after you did some PvP? Okay, so you use 2 more. Now you're down to, what's that, 5. Did you see where I'm getting with this? There's this weird, like, convoluted system that's kind of like being able to switch it whenever you want, except there is a restriction for players that play multiple specs across multiple different forms of content. God forbid you want to use the same conduit and play multiple specializations for the same activity. Like, let's pretend you're a raider, for example, because that's who it affects, and you want to play, you're a priest, you're a shadow priest, okay, and you main spec shadow priest, but you wanna heal for a certain fight because your guild needs help, or like this pickup group needs some help, so you want to switch to your healing conduits. Well, you do that for 1 fight, so that's 2, and then you switch back, so that's 4. There's no reason to have this weird energy system when you could just let us change it. Like, let us change it with a tome. And additionally, these conduits aren't that interesting either. They're not nearly as interesting or impactful as talents. They're just numbers increases. They're like, oh, Shadow Word Death does X amount more damage, or Malefic Rapture does 20% more damage when your target has Unstable Affliction on it. It's like, these aren't changing your character in the way like a talent is, but you can do that at will. I don't understand the logic here. If the goal is to increase the flexibility of soulbinds and make it more viable to use one soulbind for multiple specializations, just remove the cooldown and the restriction altogether. There's no reason to develop this. There's no reason to develop this UI that keeps track. This is ridiculous. It's better than the 7-day reset. I will say that. Like, if this is the system we get over the 7-day reset, hats off. Like, that's way better, because the other one was fucked. But this is still stupid. Just remove the restriction, let us change them whenever we want. That's fine. And it allows you to balance the conduits, because then you have the assumption that everyone has access to all the conduits if they're doing all of the content. Magic. Crazy, right? What an idea. It's easier to balance when you don't have a convoluted system. Now, the Soulbind tree updates. So Wowhead has this, and I'll be linking this in the description below. This is just how they looked before and after. You now only have 2 potency conduits, and again, these are the most powerful ones. So, like, some of the issues that I'm seeing here is that they've moved them around, so you can't always get a combination that you could before. Like, for example, like if you just take Pelagos, you could still get your potency conduit and then pick any of these 3. Or I'm sorry, they've changed that a little bit. You can for some of them you can get a potency conduit and have any of these 3. But if you look down here, before you could get a potency conduit and then this one, and then a defensive conduit and then one of these, and then potency conduit, and your end talent. Moving them around is fine as long as balance happens, but again, just being able to switch them in and out, switch them around is what matters. And then my other question is, what happens if you just want to reset the tree but keep the conduits the same? So if I, like for example, I'm playing Pelagos and I just like want to lose this potency conduit for whatever reason. Let's pretend I don't want this potency conduit and I want this finesse one instead. Does that still count as changing it, even though they're both locked in, or is it only when you put them into the slots does it use energy? Again, all of this stuff, all of these questions wouldn't exist if it was simply what it meant to be was just a flexible talent tree. It's a flexible talent tree. That's really what it is. It's passive bonuses to this or that, and you can choose them based upon the situation. The system would be a lot more fun and a lot more engaging if you could choose between more interesting things. So, and then going back to the balance thing. So they're trying to balance classes and covenants. What they've been doing is nerfing everything into the ground. I play Warlock. All of the good Covenant abilities have been nerfed into the ground to make them as bad as the Night Fae one. That's really how they seem to be doing it. Now, it makes sense from a balance perspective. Now, like, they're balanced, but they're also less fun. And again, this goes back to that whole ripcord conversation that we've been having since Preach's interview. And that's, if you just gave us access to all of them and we could switch like in between pulls, or you try out different abilities for different situations, again, like the talent tree, which are again way more impactful than these covenant abilities, you would have the ability to have very strong, very interesting abilities for each class. It wouldn't matter how strong Decimating Bolt is for Necrolord, or how strong Bone Spike is, Serrated Bone Spike is for rogues, because rogues could choose to have them in the situations that they were good and choose to have something else in situations where they were good. It makes more sense to have multiple very interesting, very impactful choices that you get to make on a regular basis versus one choice that you're locked into that doesn't really matter because you're supposedly picking on story and cosmetics and flavor reasons. I don't know, Bliss. I'm not very happy about that, but I'm going to end on a positive note. I'm going to end this video on a positive note. So they're buffing legendaries. This is good. This is what we want. Like, I want this to happen to the Covenant abilities. I want this to happen to the Conduits. I want this to happen to the Soulbinds. This is great because they can buff the legendaries, and they can buff them because we'll have access to all of them. If you play the game, you'll have access to all of the legendaries eventually. So it doesn't matter if there's a legendary that's miles ahead in a specific situation. You can just get it and you can use it in that specific situation. You have your single target one, you have your cleave one, you have your mythic plus one, you have your PvP one, you have your utility one, you have your open world one. You have all of these options and they're accessible to you, because that was the problem with Legion legendaries, is while they were very, very impactful, you didn't have access to them. Now we have access to them and they're not impactful. Hopefully with these buffs, they'll be a lot more impactful and they'll feel legendary and they'll feel beefy and they'll feel really, really good to have and really, really good to play with. So you want to play with all of them, but you can only play with one at a time. And that's how all of Shadowlands aspects should be. All of these systems that they're putting into place, the Conduits, the Soulbinds, the Covenant abilities even, you should want them all. You should, like, they're super exciting and you should want them all, but you can only use one at a time. You can use one later. You can in a different situation, you can use one later, but you want them all, but have to pick one for the certain situation. That's a much more impactful choice, and that's a much more meaningful choice, if you ask me. Let me know how you guys feel about this kind of video format. This is just me going over some stuff. I'm going to do a weekly news with Noxx sort of video every single week. So again, I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday on Twitch. Link to that will be in the description below. And thanks for watching. Have a good day.